and welcome to the Plymouth Township Zoning Hearing Board for meeting for May 17th, 2021. Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
To the
to the
flag
flag
of the United States of
of
America,
America, and
and
to
to
the
the
republic
republic for which it stands, one
one
nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah. Thank you. Before we begin the hearings, we have a couple of things we have to clean up. The Silver Springs Martin Luther School, which was originally scheduled for tonight, will be heard and will be re-advertised for June 21st, 7 p.m. The next matter we have to address is the Craft Custom Homes, which was 2622 Butler Pike. And they received a variance on July 15th, 2020. And they have requested a one-year extension pursuant to the zoning code until July 15th, 2022, so that they can complete their land development application. So I guess, Mr. Sander, we have to make a motion on that. You're muted, Dave. You're still muted.
There I go. I couldn't unmute for a second. Thanks, Brandon.
I thought we were getting, someone was trying to interrupt, so I got rid of the option for it.
Oh, I appreciate that.
No problem.
No problem. Yes, Mr. Chairman, it would be appropriate to entertain a motion to extend the relief granted to Craft Custom Homes LLC for 2622 Butler Pike through July 15th, 2022.
So do we have a motion?
I'll move to extend the relief granted to Craft Homes LLC, 2622 Butler Pike, through July 15th, 2022, is it, Dave?
2022,
Sorry, yes.
July 15th, 2022, yeah.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I don't think we need a roll call vote. Is everybody in favor of this?
Yes, in favor.
Aye.
Yes.
In favor.
In
That's
favor.
fine.
Thank you. I guess now we move on to our regular list tonight, Mr. Sander. I guess
That's
the first
correct,
piece-
Mr. Chairman. I believe we're hearing the Fahoud Yafai case first, 102 Chancery Place.
Excuse me, there's a question in the chat about repeating the date of the Martin Luther School issue.
Yes, Mr. Conroy attended to that and
Okay.
gave the date, and the person thanked him for that. So I think that's
Oh,
addressed.
okay. I thought that was after. Okay, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, this is the application of Fahoud Yafai. Is it Y-A-F-A-I?
Yes, Yafai, Y-F-A-I.
Okay, and the application is for a variance from section 1909E of the Plymouth Township zoning ordinance to allow a fence within the front yard setback for property located at 102 Chancery, C-H-A-N-C-E-R-Y Place in the B as in boy residential zoning district.
Thank you, Mr. Sander. I believe the applicant is here, Mr. Yafai.
Yes, I'd like to thank the board for hearing my case.
Please, Mr. Yafai, please let the court reporter swear you in.
Sure.
Paula?
Yes, I was just unmuting myself. Sorry. State your full name, please, for the record.
Fahad Yafai.
Spell your name for the record, please.
Sure. F as in Frank, A-A-H-U-D, and last name Y-A, F as in Frank, A-I.
Raise your right hand, please, sir. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Yafai, would you like to tell the board and the public who is also on what you'd like to do?
Yes, so I live on a corner, Chancery Place and Plymouth Road. And what I consider my side yard, because it faces Plymouth Road, is technically a front yard. I wanted to fence the side yard, but the issue is that the fence can't go beyond the facade of the house. So if I were to fence the yard that way, it would essentially cut the yard in half. I have 3 small children, and it's a heavily trafficked corner, particularly on Plymouth Road. I've had a school bus hop the curb and break an axle on our grass. And I've also, my neighbor has noted that there's been some cut throughs on that corner. And for safety and security for my kids, I wanted to fence that side. But because it's a front yard, I'm seeking variance.
Thank you. That's questions from the board. Ms. Pygott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to ask, it appears that part of the fence will be in the front of your house, where your front entrance is. What's the dimension from one end of the fence to the other end, just on the front? How many feet do you plan on?
You mean past the front of the house, you mean? The
Yes,
front.
if you're facing your house to the left of your driveway, it appears that you're putting the fence there. It's going to start from the front of your house going left toward Plymouth Road. So how many feet would it be, that front fence? Do you know?
From the front of the house? I wasn't planning on having it come farther than the front facade. It would be.
It would cover a portion of the front of your house though, right? Not your house itself, but the front on the Chancery Place. Part of the fence would be on Chancery Place.
Part of the fence, yes, it would. Well, it would be behind the front, the facade that's facing Chancery Place. It wouldn't go beyond the facade that's facing Chancery Place.
Right, but I was just wondering how long would that be, say from the end of your house over to the end of the fence going toward Plymouth?
I see. What I don't have the exact dimensions because I wanted to seek the variance before I spoke to some fencing companies and they wanted to know the setback, and then I found out that it needed a variance, that there wasn't a setback. So I haven't, I don't have the exact measurements, but
So how far off the sidewalk on Plymouth Road side, how far from the sidewalk to the fence were you planning to have?
I was anticipating about a foot away from the sidewalk.
Oh, from the grass, okay.
So there would be a little bit of grass between the fence and the sidewalk.
And the sidewalk just a foot width. Okay. All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Daly?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me. Mr. Yaffe, what type of fence do you propose to put in?
I was for the side going along Chancery and then Plymouth, I was looking to do a privacy fence that would be within the height restrictions for the township.
That's 2 feet, is it not, Mr. Chairman? Or is it, usually we have to give variances, it's going to be like 4 feet, something like that.
But the height of the fence?
Yeah, permissible height of the fence.
I thought it was 2, but Dave Conroy can.
The highest the fence can be is 6 feet.
6,
Right.
oh, okay.
Would it have to be a 2-foot fence if I'm going in that side with the variance? Or would
In
it
the front yard?
6 feet that goes through that for, the 6 feet that's allowed for the township?
Without a variance, can it be 2 feet, Dave, a fence in the front yard?
You can have a fence 2 feet high and below without a permit.
Okay.
So with the variance, though, I was, and maybe it's my fault for assuming, I was assuming that with the variance, I would be able to do the 6 foot that's allowed by the township.
if you put, yeah, if you're granted a variance, you can put a fence as high as 6 feet. In
Okay.
your front yard, or, yeah.
Okay, that was my mistake then. Thank you. Thanks for correcting it. Are your neighbors okay with you doing this? Mr.
Yes, actually, so my neighbor to the left of me in 104, his children are often in my yard. So
Oh.
he was the one who's been informing me about the cut throughs. And actually, the neighbor across the street from me has a fence in his front yard already.
Okay. I drove out by your property today and I didn't notice that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Would you anticipate the fencing would affect any driver or pedestrian sight lines either along Plymouth Road or Chancery Place?
No, because it wouldn't be going out beyond the front facade of the house, and it wouldn't obstruct any visibility at the stop sign.
Okay. Just, and I know that you proposed to put a chain link fence at the back of the property. Does that, Dave Conroy, is there a requirement? Is that covered by this?
Chain link fence?
Yeah, I saw Mr. Yaffe had a proposed chain link fence along the
Back
back.
of the property, I was planning on, after I construct the, I put it in the schematic, after I construct the privacy fence, I'd like to have a chain link fence between that, in the back of my property.
He would be, yeah, you would be allowed to
Could do that.
put a chain link fence in the backyard. That's allowed.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't have a question whether it was allowed. I just didn't know if it was something that, was covered under this, perforce covered under this variance or,
No, if it's in the backyard, it wouldn't need zoning relief.
okay, okay, all right, good.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are all my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Aprila.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. They were good questions, Brian. There's no measurements on this diagram, so I didn't know what kind of fence was going there or what the height was. So Mr. Fawad, what is the size of the back chain link fence, the height?
That would also be the 6 foot.
6 foot. Okay.
Yes.
And you don't think a 6-foot privacy fence on Plymouth Road is going to obstruct drivers coming down Plymouth Road? Is there a stop sign on
There's a
Plymouth Road for Chancery? Is there a
There's
stop
a
sign
stop
there?
sign there's a stop sign at Chancery.
I understand that. I'm talking about Plymouth Road.
There is not a stop sign. There's a light at Plymouth Road, and then there's a light at Belvoir.
There's a light at Chancery and Plymouth.
No, there's a light at Sandy Hill and Plymouth, and then there is a
Talking
light.
about, sir, I'm just talking about Chancery and Plymouth, the intersection of Chancery and Plymouth, where your house is.
Yes,
You propose to put a 6-foot fence that will obstruct traffic views. So is there a light at Chancery and Plymouth or a stop
Yeah.
sign?
there's a stop sign at Chancery and Plymouth.
But it's just on Chancery.
Correct.
So if you're coming down Plymouth Road at, what's the speed limit there? 35?
I believe so.
Okay. Most people are doing 40, give or take. If a kid comes out of Chancery on a bike, is somebody going to be able to see that kid if he's doing 40 miles an hour when your fence is obstructing the view, even though it's set back to your building? I'm asking you the question.
Right. So you're saying if a kid is riding a bike from Chancery onto Plymouth Road, not on the sidewalk?
That's correct.
Well, there is a stop sign, and where like I said, my neighbor has a fence on Chancery and Plymouth as well, on the opposite side. And I haven't had an obstructed view of that intersection coming in to my neighborhood.
And that's a 6-foot privacy fence?
It is as high as I am, and I'm 6 foot. I can go and measure it.
You have to have 6 foot, and this is to do what? To keep your kids inside your yard, or to obstruct everyone's view of your yard? What are you trying to do?
Well, with the kids, I'd like to have some privacy as well with the kids in the yard, and then also, so I mean, my intention isn't obviously to obstruct the view. So I wanted privacy and security for the kids.
Security could be a chain link fence, doesn't have to be a solid fence. Do you agree with that?
Yes, but I also there.
I understand you want
visibility-
privacy. I understand exactly what you're saying. I'm not pushing, I'm just saying there's definitely a safety issue also. Whether you believe it or not, that's my belief.
Okay.
On a 6-foot privacy fence on the main road there. So if you want to rethink that, that's fine. But I have no more questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Curley. Mr. Armando? You're muted, Dave.
Yeah. Just some clarification from Dave. So when you live in a corner like that, you're treated like you have 2 front yards?
Correct. And just to clarify, if that fence is approved, there's already right now, there's shrubbery that's way above 6 feet along Plymouth Road on the side of this house. I'm not trying to sway anyone one way or the other on how to vote or anything, but putting a fence there would not be detrimental to any sight distances at this point if you simply look at the shrubbery that's there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've noticed the shrub. I noticed the shrubbery myself.
Yeah, I was going to, sorry, Dave, I was going to inquire about the shrubbery and whether the fence was going to be in front of the shrubbery or behind the shrubbery, because that shrubbery is probably 15 feet tall.
Right.
And, you know, there's a certain level of privacy in that you can't see into the shrubbery already. So, you know, without an explanation as to which side of the shrubbery the fence would be on would also be helpful.
Sure. The shrubbery in the summer is, you know, provides a good amount of privacy, but in the wintertime, it becomes much more sparse. My plan was to actually put the fence in front of where the shrubbery is, and then there's intermixed in that shrubbery, there's a number of dead trees. So my plan was to get rid of some of the dead trees that are in that line of shrubbery.
And Mr. Armando, back to you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Oh, no. So my only question is, does the fence have to come off the front of the house? What would be the downside of it coming off the back of the house? Just loss of backyardage? It would essentially cut the, if it comes off the back of the house, it would be about a quarter of my yard, because there'd be a front yard on one side, and then the house is kind of set halfway into the yard already. So fencing that would really be just about fencing about a quarter of the yard that I have. Just clarification, Mr. Conroy, if it wasn't on a corner, fences can come off the front of the house?
Yeah, as long as it doesn't go past the front facade of the house.
Right, okay. All right, no more questions. Thank you very much.
I guess the most important question to me is how far back from Chancery Place is the fence?
In terms of, it would be behind the front facade of the house. So it's not going to be extending past the front facade of the house.
And I appreciate that, but getting back to what Mr. Aprilli was talking about, if that fence, if the front of the house and the fence is back, say 20 feet, it probably doesn't have any impact on people seeing people coming out of Chancery Place. But there's no dimensions on the plan, so I can't tell. And I was out there and looked at it. I mean, the house looks like it's fairly far back, but I'm not walking on your property and measuring it. I mean, that's not what I do, but I go by the properties and look at them all. And, you know, it looked like it was fairly far back. So I don't know if his concern is that big a deal on this property, but I can't really tell because you don't have the measurements. So I don't know how far back it is. But I also know you have that row of shrubbery there, which if there's a barrier, that's a barrier. And I think that's back far enough so that it doesn't interfere with.
That shrubbery actually extends further up than what I
where I intended to have the fence.
I just think it would have been helpful if the plan showed the shrubbery and where it was and where the fence is in location, where the fence is with respect to the shrubbery, as to which side it would be on. I don't know that it has a negative impact on people coming in and out, but dimensions would have been, I think, helpful to me to look at this and understand how far back the house is off of Chancery, so that if it's set back far enough, then it really doesn't matter and you know, won't impact sight lines. If it's close to Chancery, then it would have a negative impact on sight lines, as Mr. Aprile said. So my gut reaction from having been out there and looking at it is that it's probably back far enough, but you know, it would have been helpful to have some dimensions on the plan so I could see, you know, just how far back it is. And again, to show the conditions on the site, something that shows where those plantings are, because they are pretty tall, and you know, it is the summer or almost the summer, and they're pretty tall and they're all grown in. So, you know, the sight lines, they're blocked by them, if anything, and just knowing where things are on the plan would be a little bit more helpful to me in my looking at this.
You're right. I agree. I mean, to at least just kind of give you the idea of where it would be. So there are 3 bushes that are further, that are closer to Chancery Place than what would be where they're kind of in line with the front facade of the house and toward Chancery Place. So there's another shrub and 2 lilac shrubs that are that would be actually in front. The fence that I'm seeking the variance for would be behind those. So the shrubbery, that line of shrubbery extends farther out than where the fence would be on the Chancery side.
It's hard to envision that. I guess the other thing, though, you do have a quirk to the lot, as Mr. Conroy said. If this was in the middle of the block, I don't think we would be here at all, because you're not in the front yard. But just because you happen to be on Plymouth Road and on Chancery, you know, it becomes a front yard as to Plymouth Road. So I do think you have a quirk that we have to consider in looking at this. But you know, a little bit more information would have been a little more helpful to us, at least to me.
Of course.
I'll speak for the other board members, at least to me in my evaluation of the you know, proposal. That being said, let's see if there's anybody from the public here who would like to speak in support of this. Is there anybody here from the public who'd like to speak in opposition? I see no public comment. Mr. Sander, do you have any questions before we move on?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to ask the applicant, Mr. Yafai, if the board grants you relief, would you be agreeable to a condition that the township engineer approve the site distance at the corner of Chancery Place and Plymouth Road prior to the issuance of a fence permit to you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Can
Thank
I
you.
just amend that, Mr. Sanders?
Sure.
We usually have our building inspectors make sure of that with every fence installation. If they have a question on if they think it's an issue, then would you be agreeable at that point we contact the township engineer?
If the building inspector raises a question
Correct.
about it, that the township engineer be consulted and be accommodated as far as the location goes. Okay.
And is there anybody else from the board with any further questions? Okay. Do we, and Mr. Connery, have nothing further?
I've already said too much.
Do we have a motion from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the variance of section 1909E to allow a fence on his second front yard along Plymouth Road
With the condition about the,
With all conditions stated prior, with the engineer okaying it
right,
and sight lines being approved and
perfect.
anything else you want to add?
Anyway, do we have a second to that motion?
I second it.
Thank you. Okay, a roll call vote. Ms. Pygott,
In favor.
Mr. Daly,
In favor.
Mr. Aprile,
Opposed,
opposed?
opposed.
Okay, I couldn't hear you first, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Romano?
In favor.
The chair votes in favor, but, and good luck with the fence. I do understand the need and I do understand the quirk of your yard, but it would have been a little bit easier on us had we had a little bit better, information. But good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yaffe.
The next matter is, 1806 Gravers Road. Mr. Sander.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me grab that file, if you will. This is the application of Anthony and Caitlin Altamare for property located at 1806 Gravers Road. This is a request for variances. There are 3 total variances. One is to allow 25.78% impervious coverage where a maximum of 25% is allowed. Second one is to allow 74.22% green space where a minimum of 75% is required. And the third one is to allow a shed that measures 12 feet by 14 feet where a maximum of 12 feet by 12 feet is allowed. Again, the property is at 1806 Gravers Road in the A residential zoning district.
Thank you, Mr. Sander. Mr. Conrad, I have one question. Is all of the relief required solely because the shed's 12 by 14? If the shed were 12 by 12, would any of the relief be required? If you know-
Was that to me?
Well, hold on. We shouldn't have testimony yet until
No, I
the
had
witnesses
a
are
question
sworn.
I had a question for Dave Conroy.
Oh, I have a question for the zoning officer. Okay, thanks.
I still think they will, even if it was 12 by 12, I still think technically they would be
Slightly-
whatever, 0.2% over something. I don't know.
Just curious about that, if it was all being driven by that.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. Then, I guess it's Mr. and Mrs. Altamare.
How you
Could
doing?
please let the court reporter swear you in?
State your full name for the record. Who'll be testifying?
Caitlin Altamare,
Very
Anthony
loud.
Altamare.
Altomare.
Both raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
My apologies to the Altameres for giving them Italiano pronunciation at the end.
No,
of the
that's very
name.
good. Thank you.
I didn't know, I didn't.
I see.
I grew
Thank
up
you.
with Altamares.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Okay, would you guys explain to the board what it is you'd like to do?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you very much for the time this evening. We're requesting to get a pool shed off of the side of our pool for a bunch of reasons. We're a large family, and to have a home base outside would be very functional for our entire family. I have 4 young kids. On average, I have about 6 kids daily during the summer because sometimes I watch my nieces. So I have children from ages of 11 down to 2. And to have that opportunity to have like a home base where I can make sandwiches or have towels on hand, shade for the kids, it would be very, very beneficial, just so I'm not running in and out of the house, especially with the kids, having to be drug in the house once my niece takes a nap. Not only that, on the off season, we have multiple pieces of furniture around the pool area. We have 0 space in our garage due to cars, and my husband coaches multiple sports teams, so all of his equipment for the teams are packed in that garage that we have here. So to have the availability to have the shed on hand to be able to store everything as well as in the in season to have that home base outside would be very beneficial.
Thank you. Ms. Pygott, questions
Uh,
for the applicant?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. and Mrs. Altamir, I was just wondering, will you have plumbing in the shed? I know you said you want to make sandwiches. You don't need plumbing for sandwiches, but will you have a toilet or anything for the kids
No,
to use?
no, that would be great, but no.
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 Okay. How far from is there a home directly behind your backyard?
There is, yes.
Yes.
And
It's
how,
about 30 feet from I guess, the edge of their property line to the shed.
the shed? Yeah, it
Plus
looks like you have a
minus.
lot of space, yeah,
Yes.
behind your house. Yeah,
Mhm.
yes. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Daly?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Altamir, how deep will the shed be?
That's the 14-foot side. It's 14 deep, 12 wide.
Okay. And how high?
It's, you know what? I apologize for that. I should have that, but it's a prefabricated shed. So I can't imagine it's anything over 8 feet, maybe. I'm thinking, thinking that's probably the standard height.
Maximum, Mr. Conroy, the maximum of the peak is what, 16 feet? Am I correct?
Correct.
For sure, okay,
Well, for a shed is 12 feet.
12, okay,
It's definitely not 12. Yeah, it's 100% under 12.
okay. Have your neighbors expressed any opposition to this or the support?
Well, my family owns the house next to us.
Yes.
So, and I've lived here pretty much my entire life. So
Okay,
each of our neighbors is basically family as well. So
Yeah.
okay.
They're
okay.
all in favor because I cook them dinner every night, so.
Okay.
Yes.
People, I noticed there's a tennis court around here. Is that your property too?
no, that's my parents.
Yes.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yes.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. Mr. Aprile?
Just one question. The shed is going to be inside your pool fence?
Correct. Yes. I guess at that point we would, once we set the structure, then we would kind of work our way back in, fence it in, kind of just on the sides.
So you're really not going to see the shed. It's going to be inside the pool. It's going to be inside the pool complex.
Mostly, yes. Yeah, might butt up against the edge. I got to see just aesthetically and I guess how it all falls and places in how we're gonna.
But from the street, like our house covers where it would be. So from
Right.
the street, you would never know we would have it.
Okay, no more questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Armando? Muted, Dave. You're muted.
Yeah, okay, one question. What kind of sandwiches are we making?
Well, I just got a new griddle, so it could be cheesesteak, sausage sandwiches, whatever you need.
All right. I'm getting hungry.
Yeah.
It's grilled cheese o'clock at the House of
Yeah.
Altamir.
No further question.
No questions?
No further questions. Back to you, Chairman.
Yeah, just looking at this, will there be any utilities, electric service to the shed?
So with the prefabricated structure, there is a plug, I guess, to run like a fan, and then there's like a small light system, but how often we use it, I don't know. I mean, if we do, it would just be a dedicated plug, a grounded plug.
Okay. I have no further questions. Mr. Sander, you have any questions?
I wanted to go back to the testimony about this being a home base and just get the use of this. Is it going to be for storage and functional for, as you said?
Right, that's what I guess to explain further, off season, the months out of the year that we will not be using the pool area, we will be storing all of our porch furniture because currently we have it underneath our deck, and I'd like to clean that area up just because you can actually see that storage underneath our deck right now. So I'd like to kind of clean that up, and by getting this shed, it would provide us the opportunity to put everything in, store it safe, so it's not all out there for the inclement weather. So,
Okay.
But it
Yeah.
does
Then-
function as,
and then
I'm sorry.
during the season, I live outside. So in order to have towels, a place for my daughter who's getting older as well, I have 3 daughters and a son. So for them to be able to have their friends get changed, but still have, supervision of, myself and not in and out of the house, I would really, I'm a freak about the pool. So I'm always making sure that everybody's accounted for. To have that opportunity for the kids to kind of get changed in there with the privacy and everything would be the very beneficial.
Okay, and no other, no plumbing, the
No.
grounded plug, electric. Okay. Yeah, just trying to get an idea of the use of it. Trying to limit, you won't use this shed for any kind of commercial use at all?
No,
No.
Okay.
there's an entertaining, like in the front of it, there's like a place where you can sit. So that's the multifunction of it. So you can actually walk up to it and it's used as a 2-tier. So it is like an entertaining spot and you can use it as a storage area as well too.
Okay. Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak in support of this application? Is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak in opposition to this application? Seeing none, Mr. Conroy, did you have anything further?
Just to clarify, so the total footprint of the shed is 12 by 14, even with that entertaining area you were just talking about, correct?
Yeah. So
Okay.
the bottom portion, yeah, that's what they write it down. Yep.
Okay.
12 by 14.
And last thing, I like that Phil's hat.
It's actually a Plymouth hat.
No, I
It's
really.
Plymouth.
I just came for practice.
Oh,
I
it's a
ran in.
Plymouth. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm like, my bad.
But hey,
Don't give him the time of day. He's a Jets fan.
I'm also a Dodger fan, but
uh-oh, look out.
Just pay no
That's
attention.
it.
Do we have a motion from the board?
Yeah, I'll move that we approve a variance from ordinance number 342 as amended, Article 19, Section 1909.e to, I'm sorry, I was reading from the wrong one. Article 5, Sections 502F, 502G, and Article 19, Section 1908.1 to request the variances to allow 25.78% impervious coverage where maximum of 25% is allowed, to allow 74.22% green space where maximum of 75% is required, and to allow a 12-inch by 14-inch shed where maximum of 12 by 12 is allowed.
12 foot, Dave, Brian,
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, what did I say?
12 inches.
12 inches, 12, excuse me. Well, no, you make them have a 12-inch shed like the like the Stonehenge in
Like
Spinal Tap.
Stonehenge.
Yeah. So yeah, to allow a 12 foot by 14 foot shed. where
Yeah,
maximum
from
12 people-
Spinal Tap.
Yeah, right. That's that. I'm sorry.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you. So Ms. Pagat,
In favor.
Mr. Daly,
In favor.
Mr. Prilly,
Favor.
Mr. Armando,
In favor.
and the chair votes in favor. Good luck. You have a very beautiful yard over there, so it really looks
Oh,
good. So
Oh,
good luck.
thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
And
Next on the agenda, Mr. Sander.
Next on the agenda is the application, and I better get it right, or Dave Conroy is going to be not happy with me.
I'm just not sure if you had the original one or the one I revised, so that's
Well,
why.
I'm going to read the one you sent me.
Okay, just do that.
Okay, this is the application of Charles S. Franzone Jr. This is for a special exception from section 1701 of the Plymouth Township zoning ordinance and variances from sections 1700 and 1700 D5. The special exception request is to allow joint use of the parking areas at 1940 and 1950 Main Avenue. The variances requested are as follows: to allow 2 parking stalls less than the required 9 foot by 18 foot dimension, to allow 46 parking stalls at 1940 Main Avenue where a minimum of 76 spaces is required. Property's main property here is at 1940 Main, and it also involves shared parking at the property identified as 1950 Main, whose owner has joined in and supports this application. This is all located, Dave, in the C Commercial District.
Thank you. And is
I see
counsel
Mr. Hughes.
here?
Yeah, Mr. Hughes is here.
Good evening. Ed Hughes here represents the applicant. I have two witnesses this evening, Charles Franzone III and Joseph Estock, our professional engineer. Would ask them to be
Thank you.
sworn in now.
Yes.
State your full name. The engineer will do that first. Your full name, please, and spell it for the record.
Joseph M. Estock, last name is spelled E-S-T-O-C-K. Business address is 355 South Henderson Road in King of Prussia.
Raise your right hand, please, sir. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, Mr. Franzone.
Charles Franzone, F-R-A-N-Z-O-N-E.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very briefly, just all relates to the fact that the Franzone facility wants to put in a four-season deck above what currently exists as four parking at-grade parking spaces in order to address some of these COVID issues and competition with other restaurants who all seem to be moving towards four-season type outdoor dining. So the first witness would be Charles Franzone III. State your name again, please.
Charles Franzone.
And who owns the property at 1940 Main Avenue?
Charles Franzone Jr.
And we have a series of exhibits. I think, I don't know if the board has them or not, but Exhibit A1 is the application. Exhibit A2 is the deed for 1940 Main Avenue.
Yes.
That indicates the ownership by Charles Franzone Jr., who's here this evening with us as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
And who owns the property at 1950 Main Avenue?
It's 1950 Main Ave LLC.
And that's a limited liability company that Charles Franzone Jr. is a sole member of.
Correct.
And he joined, and that entity joins in the application in order to share the parking between 1940 and 1950 Main Avenue.
That's correct.
And those properties are separated by West Avenue,
Yes.
and that's a private street,
Correct.
and it's in your ownership. And you gave easements for people to use that.
Yes.
And you're authorized to speak on behalf of the applicant and the owners of the properties.
I am.
And what are you proposing to construct at 1940 Main Avenue?
So what we would like to construct is an full four-season deck built off of the side of our bar, which would have one entrance and one exit through the building only. And basically, we would be able to repurpose seating that we've lost due to COVID. If anybody's familiar with our restaurant, the dining room was rather cramped, and through the middle of the dining room, there were 4 tables with 8 seats each. Most nights on a busy night, you would have 2 families of 4 sitting at one table. Due to COVID, that is essentially a thing of the past. We'd like to repurpose 20 seats into the new deck so that we can create more space in the current dining room. We can create space out on the deck, and then essentially when this is built, we'll be able to go back to our full capacity, which we had before COVID.
Now, Exhibit A3 is a Google aerial of the properties,
Yes.
and that listed as 1940 Main Avenue has the red dot on it.
Yes.
And across West Avenue is, the plan says Premier Martial Arts.
Yes, so that's 1940 Main Ave or 1950 Main Avenue. That's the building that my father owns. We also have an office back there, which the businesses back there share 0 time with our business. So the only time we would be asking to use their parking is after their business hours, when everything's concluded and all their customers are gone.
And exhibit A4 is a series of 4 photographs.
Yes,
And the first photograph, I don't know if you have it in front of you, is a sign that says Franzone Pizza and Sports Bar and fast signs.
that's what you see when you pull into our parking lot. Yeah,
And they're the 2 tenants that occupy 1940 Main Avenue.
correct.
And the second photograph as exhibit A4 is a picture of the back of the Franzone facility.
Correct.
And that's the area where there's 4 at-grade parking spaces right now and a tree.
Yes,
And that's where you want to put the raised deck,
correct.
eliminating 2 parking spaces,
Yes,
preserving 2.
correct.
And what the next picture is something called the beer garden.
Yes, so that's what we built during COVID to try to, sustain business throughout this whole pandemic. And that's where we currently were able to maintain some business with what we've lost inside, which also we'd like to repurpose that upstairs, because that accounts for what we did take out of the dining room. So we would obviously, if approved, we could take all of that down, which is quite the hazard in a parking lot.
Yeah, that's a temporary measure with the COVID.
Drive safely.
Correct.
And if we get approval, actually, when the COVID gets restricted in full, that's going to go away anyway.
Correct. Yeah,
And what is the 4th photograph of exhibit A4?
that is to show the parking lot behind Franzone's, which we are looking to use parking for. That obviously shows that there's nobody in that parking lot during our busy hours between 6 and 9 p.m.
So that's a photograph of 1950 Main Avenue.
Correct.
Across West Avenue from 1940.
Correct.
And exhibit A5 is a architect's drawing of the proposed 4-season deck.
Yes.
And that shows that in the lower portion of that drawing is the partial floor plan, mark number 1.
Correct.
And that shows on the right-hand side of those 4 existing parking spaces, the construction of a building that will include a men's room, a woman's room, storage closet, janitor closet, and a server station, and steps up to the deck.
Correct.
And what's marked as partial floor plan number 2 on that drawing is the actual upstairs deck.
Correct.
And that shows a bar
Yes.
and the stairs up to the deck,
Correct.
and some seating for, I think, 18 persons.
Between 18 and 22. Yes.
And so there's like 3 round tables and 3 rectangular tables,
Yes.
and then 4 seats at the bar.
Correct.
For a total of additional 22 patron areas.
Yes, sir.
Prior to COVID, in your existing facility, the dining room and the bar, you had 130 seats.
Yes, we did.
And with COVID, you eliminated 22 seats.
Correct.
And so now you're going to replace those 22 seats on the upstairs deck
Correct.
and not go back to 130 on the existing dining room or bar area.
That's the plan.
And why do you think it's important to have outdoor dining in this current phase of life?
Well, I think COVID speaks for itself. Obviously, we all see the benefit of having outdoor dining. However, through and past and after COVID, I think that is the direction that most neighborhoods and restaurants are going in. I think it creates a platform to have protection in the event that a pandemic should strike again, because I think, as we all learned this year, nobody really truly knows what could possibly happen. And the fear of being shut down, I think, is the number one reason to create the opportunity to have an outdoor dining space, as well as to stay relevant and to stay in competition with some places like the Pub in Conshohocken, PJ Willihan's, Redstone, and some of the other areas, or some of the other restaurants and bars in the area that are able to sustain themselves with an outdoor seating option.
In 1950 Main Avenue, you have an office there for your friend's own facility, a
Yes, we
small office.
Yes,
Also, there's a hairdresser in there
there's a hairdresser.
and a karate studio.
Correct.
And those are sort of off-peak compared to the busy times of your restaurant.
Exactly.
And Fast Signs, the other retail facility at 1940 Main Avenue, is also off-peak from your restaurant time.
Correct.
And what are your proposed hours of operation at the restaurant?
11 to 11,
7 days a week?
7 days a week,
And what's your busiest time usually?
6 to 9 p.m.,
What days of the week?
Monday through Saturday.
Are you going to have any live music on the deck?
Not on the deck, no.
Any speaker system or amplified sound audio?
No.
We went through Exhibit A5. The second sheet in that Exhibit A5 is a rendering of the proposed deck construction.
Correct.
And at the bottom of that page is number 1, side elevation.
Correct.
Is that the what you will see if you're standing in front of the building with your back to the Conocelli auto facility?
Yes.
So it shows a glass deck on the second floor.
Mhm.
It shows the retention of 2 parking spaces underneath the deck.
Correct.
And the top picture is front elevation.
Yes.
Now, is that the elevation you would see if you were looking at the building towards Ridge Pike?
Correct.
And that shows the second floor deck.
It does.
How about the third sheet? Is that an architect's rendering of your proposed deck?
Yes, it is.
And that shows the 2 parking spaces underneath the deck. It shows the room on the first floor for the restroom facilities, service areas and stairs.
Correct.
And then the second floor deck
Shows the deck, yep.
with a glass and a 4-season type deck
Yes.
with a pitched roof.
With a picture of the
A pitched roof.
picture of the proposed deck, it shows there's tables and chairs back there as well as greenery surrounding the fence.
Do you have any problem with parking at the facility now?
We do not.
With your 130 seat patron area, there's no parking issue that you've encountered over the years you've operated at that facility?
Correct.
And again, we're going to still remain with 130 seat capacity
Correct.
if this is approved.
Yes. Does not raise our capacity.
Have you spoken with any neighbors in the vicinity of the property?
We have.
And is that exhibit A7 a petition in support of your request of relief?
It is.
And approximately how many people joined in that?
Approximately 20 to 25 people.
Does anybody refuse to sign it?
No.
And everybody you asked to sign it, signed it?
Correct.
Some neighbors you weren't able to contact because they weren't available, but
Correct.
do you believe that the relief, if granted, would cause traffic congestion on the streets?
Absolutely not.
Would it increase the danger of fire or other public health issues?
No.
Would it overcrowd the land or create undue concentration of population?
No.
Would it impair light and air to adjacent properties?
Absolutely not.
And is your proposal consistent with surrounding uses
Yes.
and your zone C commercial?
Absolutely. Yep.
Would it unduly burden water, sewer, school, park, or other facilities?
No.
Would it be detrimental to the appropriate use of adjacent properties?
No.
And when you're looking out of the 4-season deck up on the second floor, you're looking down towards Chemical Road,
Correct.
across all the Conocelli auto
Yes.
facilities.
Mhm.
Would your proposal endanger safety of persons or property by improper location of ingress and egress facilities?
Not at all.
They're already in place and will remain as is.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. You want to have your engineer testify as well, and then we can ask questions?
Yes, please. Next witness will be Joe Estock. Joe, state your name again, please.
Yes, my name is Joseph M. Estock,
And where's your office facility?
355 South Henderson Road in King of Prussia.
And what is your occupation?
I'm a professional engineer. I'm a professional land surveyor.
You licensed in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
Yes, both as an engineer and a land surveyor,
And you've testified in front of the zoning board in Plymouth Township many times,
numerous times.
as well as many other zoning boards and boards of supervisors and governing bodies throughout Montgomery County.
Yes, sir.
I'd offer the witness as an expert in surveying and professional engineering.
Based on his reputation to the board, he will be accepted as such.
Mr. Restock, did you undertake a study with regard to the proposal of the applicant regarding parking?
I did.
And what did you determine when you did that study?
What I did is I went back through the various land development plans and also the CAS zoning release that was granted for this property in the way of parking variances and special exceptions. And what I determined that combining the two sites with these two uses, including the proposed deck, that we'd have a shortage of 26 parking spaces, which is 22%.
And the zoning ordinance, to your knowledge, allows shared parking as long as the reduction in the number of parking spaces between the two properties is less than 25%.
That's correct.
And based on your analysis, we would only be losing 22%.
That's right. We'd be short 22%. Yes.
And you've been involved with this project for a couple decades, haven't you?
Literally, yes. Yes.
So you've testified regarding this, the proposed use of this property many times,
Many times.
and you based your calculations on the proposed use of the property, taking into account the existing, the proposed deck and the existing operations at 1940 and 1950 Main Avenue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking back. I first started working on this property in 1996. So it's been like 20, 25 years. Yes.
And your study is exhibit A6.
A6.
In your opinion, would the proposed deck have any adverse impact on the ability to park on these two properties?
No, we're not.
And based on your experience with the property, there's adequate parking, especially with regard to the off-peak type uses of the property.
There is. Yes.
The restaurant being mostly busy in the evening when the retail service and retail sales operations are shut down.
Yeah, the parking demand for all the uses are complementary because the peaks of the restaurant parking is different than the peaks of the retail uses. So if you add up all the peaks that don't occur at the same time, the demand is higher. But since the peak hours for the restaurant is when the retail is at the lowest peaks, then they're complementary and it works.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further, Mr. Hughes?
No.
Thank you. Questions from the board, Ms. Pygott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Frenzone or anyone who wished to answer, can you just clarify something for me? Am I correct in thinking that your proposed raised deck is just going to cover the perimeter of 4 current parking spaces?
That is correct.
Okay, so how many spaces do you have currently in that, or in 1940, at 1940?
There's 46 parking spaces at
Okay.
1940.
So, okay, so you're only going to cover 4, but you're going to end up with, because I thought I heard that you're going to lose more than 4 spaces. Did I?
We're losing 2 spaces. Yeah, actually, to be clear, I'm just checking my numbers. There's presently 48 parking spaces at 1940.
In 1940,
The deck is going to go over 4 parking spaces.
4 of them.
Preserving 2.
Preserving 2 and losing 2. So the count for 1940 will go down from 48 to 46.
Oh, okay. And then in 1950, you're going to take away some of the building parking and give it to Franzone's, the dining facility, 10 spaces.
Physically, we're not changing anything in 1950. It's
You
just
just put in a sign, I guess. Is that what you're erecting signs to say that these spaces are going to be used for the restaurant?
After their hours.
After, okay. Okay.
There's 45 parking spaces over at 1950.
Okay. So you're really only taking away 2 spaces from 1940.
Correct.
Okay.
And 1950 is unchanged.
In 1950, okay. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Daly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Mr. Frenzone, I guess, so people can park if they needed to in, during your peak hours, at any of those parking spaces around 1950?
Yes, sir.
Because it seems like you have a pretty generous amount of real estate to park.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are there any, anyone have any concerns about anticipated, ingress, egress from your parking lot at 1940? I mean, I noticed it's somewhat narrow, say if you go through the, the curbside parking or the curbside pickup area now.
Has anybody ever had an issue that they brought to me?
Yes, I mean, has there been concerns about how the construction could affect that?
We have not. The construction will not change anything in the parking lot where you drive around the lot.
Okay.
And we've yet to have a problem.
Okay. Those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Aprilli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a little bit confused with these parking illustrations here. So, Joe, maybe you could walk me through them. It looks like for the 1996, 1997, and September of 03, and February of 05, when you add all of that up, we were 11% short. We required 103 and we had 92, and you're operating under that special variance, that special exception now. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay,
You're
so
talking about the 2005 decision? Yes.
okay, so how do we, when I look at the year 2020, maybe you updated these numbers. It says total provided 44 spaces. I just heard it was 48, and it's gone down to 46. So first, it used to be 48. Why was it 44 now? Like what happened here? I'm talking about 1940, the address, right?
1940, yes.
The deck's adding 12 spots. You're losing 2 spots, so we need 10 extra spots. And you don't have any extra spots, right?
You're comparing our present proposal with which parking count in the past? I'm confused. So we have the 2005 decision?
Hey, that's what was submitted to me.
Yeah, but which, you're comparing what we're proposing today with what parking?
I think it's page 4. It looks like 221, 205,
That's it.
right?
Yeah, and what you see there is, in 2005, we note that there's 48 parking spaces provided in 1940. And that's what's there today. There's 48 parking spaces. When you flip to the 2021 study on page 7, it says 46. So that reflects the 2 parking spaces lost pursuant to the construction of the deck. Now, the number right above that shows we're required to have 63 parking spaces for 1940 back in 2005's decision. And to now we're up to 77. So you can see there's an increase there of 14 parking spaces. And that's all generated by the demand for that square footage of the deck. And that's why there's a difference between the 63 required parking spaces in 2005 that increased to the 77 parking spaces in 2021, because we have to add in the area of the proposed one. So that drives it up.
So you're saying required 77. I'm looking at a report that says 76. I guess maybe this was superseded.
Evidently, yes. So you're on page 7, it says 76.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, that's been superseded.
Right there. And you're providing 44, right?
Page 7, does your title read parking analysis for special exception modified with deck addition 2021.
Absolutely. That's what I'm looking at. It says total required 76, total provided 44.
Yeah,
Now,
okay.
you have different numbers now?
Yes.
Okay. So what are the different numbers and why did they change?
When we went through the process with the architect and he came up with the initial square footage of the deck, we knew it was over 4 parking stalls, so we had an approximate area. When the final architectural plans were prepared, we recalculated the areas and they were slightly different. As you can see, it only changed by 1 parking space, so it was a small difference there.
So you're providing 44 or 45 or something different?
We're providing 46 parking spaces, but
Okay.
the one
What
that-
I'm looking at says 44, so that's 2 different, right? Not 1. I'm just
yeah,
want
but
to
I
get,
don't know where your document came from. You must have, I don't know why.
it was in my package, so I don't know who submitted it, but it was in my package. So it's 77 required, 46 available,
That's
correct?
right.
That's for
That's right.
1940. Now we come down to
Yeah,
1950.
You know what it was originally, sir? The first generation was we were going to put a ground level deck over all 4 parking stalls. So then that's what you're looking at there. You have an outdated sheet. In that scenario, since we're putting a ground level deck, eliminating all 4 parking stalls, we reduced the parking out from 48 down to 44. Then the architect moved that deck up to the 2nd floor, preserving 2 and removing 2. So then the count went from 48 to 46. So that's the difference in those 2 sheets. And what he did is by moving to the 2nd floor, he lost 2 less stalls. So it was beneficial to moving it upstairs.
Okay, so that's why we went down from 48 to 46. We're losing 2.
Yes.
And we're requiring 12 more, right?
Well, it went from 63 to 77, which is 14.
10 more, okay. And then across the street, and is that Markle Street? Is that a street or?
West.
It's Markle on a map.
Well,
It's
Markle on the map.
Okay, so Markle and West are the same street when I'm looking at this. Retail apartments, 2 units. So none of this is really changing except you're restriping it. Are you restriping it within the township requirements?
Yeah, you know what happened is you're obviously very good with these numbers. What happened is when they put the townhouse development at the end of West and Markle, they narrowed the street and it gained 1 additional parking stall on the 1950 site. So back in 2005, we had 44 parking spaces. When they did that construction, they put that retaining wall in, it increased 1 more parking space along the rear and it went up from 44 to 45. So we gained a stall there.
Okay. So the bottom line now is total required is 1, how many is total required?
117.
117, and we're providing
91, which is the sum of 46 and 44. Oh, that,
so the difference is 22%. Mine says 23%. Okay. You said the 2 retails are closed at night when the bar is kicking?
Correct.
Is that right? When the restaurant, it's not just a bar, it's a restaurant. It's a very good
Correct.
restaurant from what I understand. What are the 2 retail stores? What kind of services do they provide?
Hair salon and a karate studio.
So the karate studio doesn't have karate lessons from 6 to 9 for people after work?
No, and he was one that signed our sheet, that he was fully in favor.
Okay. Okay, and last question, have you guys approached, looks like TD Bank is on one side. I don't know what that other big building is. That's not the car dealership, right?
Car wash on one side and Conacelli on the other, and then TD Bank in front of us.
Yeah, that aerial photograph A3 might show that.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about if you're looking at, looking from Ridge, TD Bank's in front of you to the left. What's that?
That's Conacelli.
Conacelli has the corner and the first lot towards you.
Correct.
You abut Conacelli, right? Will TD Bank give you any spaces at night? Did you ask them for that?
We've never had to ask. We've never needed it. We've never had to ask, so we have not asked.
Okay. No more questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Mr. Romano?
Just a couple of questions. What percentage of your clientele during your peak hours are just swinging in and picking up food to take with them?
Right now, we're operating at about 60% pickup, just taking in and rolling out.
So, but that's going to go down once everybody can stay there, right?
You tell me. I only know what's going on right now because
Yeah. So is there a way to make it efficient so that people that are just swinging in and swinging out don't tie up spots, or does everybody have to park, come in, and then go back out? And you know what I mean?
we plan to continue with the curbside service that we've been providing through COVID. So that's something that we're planning to continue even after COVID to keep.
So the cars pull right through that lane and just you walk in and walk out?
Correct.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
So what we're gonna do is what we've done through COVID on our busy nights, Friday and Saturday night. We're just gonna do curbside where they pull up, stay in their car, staff comes out, delivers their pie, and they can the traffic flow keeps moving.
And that saves parking right there, right? That's huge. So what Don was referring to years ago, when you had the 46, but you needed 63, was the other property taken in consideration in the math then, or is this new?
No, it was considered in the math then.
Okay, so you always could park over there for the last 15, 20 years?
Correct, but it was never a necessity.
Right. Okay. So, and one last question, so let's say your lot's full and that lot's full, just on a crazy night, the place is packed. What's the last resort? If I'm coming over there and I can't find a spot, well, what would you recommend I do?
I would have you park either on Markle Street, which is a road that you can park on because that's where a lot of township or a lot of the homeowners park. There's street parking there. And then also the car wash is always available. But it's never happened. In 60 years of business, it's never happened.
Now, can you get to the lot over behind Hertz where there's a lot of parking on the other side of the car wash? Can you get there without going back out on Ridge?
You can get there without going back on Ridge. There's an alley that cuts up. Basically, Markle extends through up to Outback.
Okay, so you can just kind of, and that's usually pretty open, right? I mean,
it is, but it's not ours. I would never tell somebody to park there. I mean, but it is open.
Has anybody gotten towed there or anything yet? Any stories like that?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah. Okay. No further questions. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Romano. Just a couple questions. I mean, I think that the design really looks good. I guess, what kind of lighting will there be? Will it? How will the lighting be handled?
The lighting will be handled, for one, according to the township's rules. However, we would plan to do recessed lighting. Nothing would shine out from the building. Everything would be contained within that building. As you can see, there's a level of a soffit there above the windows. The lighting would be even higher than that, the highest black soffit below the red there.
Okay.
So nothing would extend out over the property. Nothing would extend out over the building.
Okay. And then this room, you'll have windows you can close so you can use it in January as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just want to make sure. I guess, and I've seen how you operate the curbside. That seems to be pretty good. And I understand your need for the beer garden, although that does seem to me to, I understand the times.
That's
it does look like you
COVID thing.
I fully appreciate that. It does look like you took away a couple handicap spaces, and that was always a concern to me.
This would be able to be a permanent solution for a lot of things.
And I understand we had to do things like the beer garden to help you get through. I fully appreciate it. But just to make it clear, that will go away when the emergency order or whatever goes away.
Absolutely.
And right. Okay. And I do like how you do the curbside pickup because that does help to get the cars out of there. My only real concern, and you never talked about this, was a lunchtime crowd, because the other businesses are open during the lunch, and I haven't heard any testimony from your traffic engineer about that. And is there any conflict then? You know, if you have 100 people in there for lunch, I mean,
We've
you know.
never had the kind of volume for lunch that would propose a parking issue.
It's Friday and Saturday night.
Yeah.
Okay, well, look, I not around that much during lunch, where I have seen your Friday night and Saturday night be very crowded. But that's more in part because of all the people doing the, you know, pickup and I think you said you have 130 seats. Was that the number?
130 seats was pre-COVID.
Right. So even if you had 130 seats, you got 91 parking spaces. I mean, I have to think a lot of people are coming in cars together. So, you know, I do tend to agree with you that you're not getting 130 people plus all your employees all driving their own cars. I mean, you know, anyway. I have no further questions. Mr. Sander, do you have any questions?
I just wanted to review the relief that I read when we introduced the matter and make sure that it jives with the relief that the applicant is actually requesting. The special exception is to allow joint use of parking areas at 1940 and 1950. Is that correct?
Correct, with a reduction of less than 25% of the required parking.
Okay, so the reduction of less than 25%, hold on. Okay, and it's being reduced to 22%.
Correct.
Okay, and that's part of the special exception.
Yes.
Okay. Then there is one variance that we didn't hear any testimony about, unless I missed it, I apologize, to allow 2 parking stalls less than the required 9 feet by 18 foot dimension. Are those the 2 stalls under the deck?
Yes, but we've the architect has revised the plan and those stalls will now be compliant.
Okay, so that relief, no relief required for space dimensions. Okay, so that's off the table. You're withdrawing the request for that.
Yes.
Okay. And finally, to allow 46 parking spaces at 1940, where a minimum of 76 spaces is required. I've heard 76. I heard 77. I heard 76.
77.
Okay.
That was in the alternative if we didn't get the special exception.
The 77 spaces are required to, okay. To allow 46 spaces, that I got, that's clear, where 77 are required. Jointly, we're not worried about what both properties together require, but jointly you're providing 91 with the shared parking.
Correct.
Okay. Got it.
That was in the alternative relief if we didn't get the special exception for the shared parking.
Okay.
If you grant the special exception, we would withdraw that request.
You'd withdraw the request for what?
Where 77 are required and we only have 46.
Oh, okay. So if the special exception is granted, there's no variance relief required.
Correct.
So it's one or it's oh, you only need the variance if the special exception is denied.
Correct.
Okay. I didn't get any of that until now. Okay.
So this qualifies for special exception because they need 117 to provide 91 and we're under 25%?
Correct. Correct. Yes. Correct.
Well, I know that Mr. Conroy agrees.
1701D.
Yeah, I'm just confirming.
I just want to get it right. That's all I need the information for. And when the board considers this, obviously, they're going to have to first consider whether to grant the special exception. If they do, that's all the action they need to take. If they deny the special exception, they'll have to vote on the variance. So the
Yeah.
special exception is to allow the shared parking. If that's denied, the variance is to allow
Correct.
46 spaces where 77 are required.
Correct.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, I think that straightens out the relief requested. All right, one other thing. I heard that normally, pre-COVID, 130 seats indoors. You had to eliminate 22 of them because of COVID. And the proposal is to add the 22 back, but on the new deck, not indoors.
Correct.
Is that what I understood?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so 130 minus 22 is 10. So you'll have no more than 108 inside and 22 outside on the deck. Okay, okay.
And the
That's all I
deck-
have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
And the deck, Mr. Sander, is a Four Seasons deck, so
Right.
they'll close the windows, so, you know, in essence.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, they put the siding, yeah, the sides up and all that stuff. Yeah, that's good. All right, that's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sander. Any further, Mr. Conroy?
No, I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
And public comment, is there anybody who would like to speak in support of this application? Is there anybody who'd like to speak in opposition to this application? So I hear no public comment. I guess we have two considerations, Mr. Sander. First is whether to grant a special exception.
Correct. If the board wishes to grant a special exception, it would be a motion to grant a special exception to allow shared parking between 1940 and 1950 Main Avenue. If it wishes to make that motion.
Does anybody want to make that motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to request a special exception for the parking. So as long as the requirement's 117 spots and they're providing 91 spots.
And do we have to specify that it's 46 on one property and 45 on the other?
Yeah, why don't we say that?
Okay.
46 on 1940 and 45 on 1950.
Okay, thank you.
So they provide 46 spots on 1940 and 45 spots on 1950 as part of the joint parking exception.
Thank you. Do we
Does
have,
that work?
that works. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Dave Armando, I think you were muted.
Yeah, I know it was. I'll say, Brian always steals my second. That's all
I'm
right.
sorry, Dave.
I'm giving it to Brian.
I'm trying to be a show off.
It's like Jeopardy.
Okay, let's have a vote. Ms. Pygott,
In favor.
Mr. Daly,
In favor.
Mr. Aprile,
Favor.
Mr. Armando,
In favor.
and the chair votes in favor. And good luck, and I'm glad you've made it through COVID, and hopefully this will be a nice enhancement for your business.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a great place. Keep it up.
Thank you, guys.
My kids all grew up here and they all say, yeah, Franzone's is their favorite pizza ever.
It's great.
Everybody loves that sauce and the thin crust.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck, guys.
Thank
Have a good night. Good luck, Bob.
Take care.
Franzone's dog clapped, by the way.
Thank you.
So I guess we're done for tonight.
I believe we are. Any other business?
I say we stay on for another hour and a half just to let Mike know what's going on.
The one question, do we have to wait till next week to find out how this thing's gonna play out, or can we know beforehand?
No, we won't know beforehand unless the parties all agree.
Right.
That's possible, but we're gonna have to put everything on the record next week.
Okay. So see you next Monday at what, 7?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, try
Listen.
to sign on. If everyone can sign on, maybe like 6:40-ish or something, just so we're not starting the meeting like 7:10, 7:15, if you know what I mean.
Good.
Yeah,
My
and
my
we may have,
apologies. My
that's all right,
apologies
Dom.
on that.
I may have more news to tell you. We may want to talk about it a little bit more. I think 20 of 7 is a great time to sign on and, you know,
All right, wonderful. See you guys
Yeah,
then.
can I say one thing, like on these front fences, I'm not trying to beat people up, but I got a situation in my neighborhood where somebody has a cyclone fence a foot in off the corner, and then they got bushes all the way around. And it's just dangerous. We've seen kids almost get picked off over 25 years, several times. So
I agree.
I'm not trying to bust on people, but I
No.
just think people got to be wary that it could be a danger.
Well, I've been doing this for like 6 or 7 years now, and this is the busiest year for front yard fences. I don't know if it's a COVID thing or if I got a kid, so I want to fence my yard
I
in.
think there's a lot of kids, people with kids probably moving in.
I mean, everybody's got, it's a tough call. I mean, if we start letting front yard fences everywhere, we might as well just everybody gets one. I mean, I
well,
don't,
yeah, and this is more of this was a corner lot.
corners are brutal. Yeah,
There are some municipalities that have special and separate provisions for fences for corner lots. And they show diagrams about how they can go and where they can come out, you know, that. So everybody treats it differently.
Now,
but
I-
corners are tough.
corner lots, you should be able to like keep it away from the road a little further. Granted, you're on a corner, but pull back 15 feet or just don't
Right.
create that sense of a wall when you're driving.
Right.
A wall and blocking vision. I totally get all that. And I mean, if there's something put in stone to saying if you live on a corner, you know, your second front yard has to be 10 feet away from the sidewalk or something, you know, something to make it like we're not living in a fenced in world.
That
Right.
guy tonight has a beautiful house, and
Yeah.
he's got great landscaping. It's 6 to 8 feet off the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So he's just going to move a fence real close to the sidewalk. I think he's going to hurt his own aesthetics myself.
Honestly, I think COVID, everybody spent the summer or a year at home in their yard, and who wouldn't want to live in a little compound fenced in yard if you're spending 80% of your time there, you know, and you have kids. I mean, I see the benefit, but I think this COVID keeping everybody home made everybody kind of want to make a little fort at home, you know?
I want to get out of my home. I'm not fencing anything and I'm leaving as soon as possible.
Dominic, I agree with you. That's a beautiful block, and that fence is
Good one.
gonna take away a little bit from that.
Maybe post and rail over there would be perfect, but
That
not,
would be better, yeah.
not a
I
privacy
just-
fence.
I
I just
agree.
I wish he would have had better plans in the sense of how far back he is from Chancery. I think that would have been helpful with some measurements, some dimensions on
Right.
it. It would have made it easier to know where he is, but.
Right. But he's not coming any further than the front of the house toward
Right.
Chancery.
Actually, I think he's okay compared to the guy from a couple weeks
Yeah.
ago. He wanted to go
Yeah.
right up to Sandy Hill, not Sandy Hill.
No,
Plymouth Road.
Belvoir.
It was Belvoir and Plymouth Road, yeah.
I drove by it the other day. It didn't look too bad. I
Yeah,
mean,
it actually looked okay.
Did he push it? But he pushed it back,
Yeah,
right?
It's back about 15 feet. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look ridiculous, you know? So that wasn't a bad. You can see right through it. It's post and rail with turkey wire. I mean,
Right.
it's done tastefully. I think that looks okay. So, all right, guys, I'll see you next week.
All right.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
Night.
Well, everybody,
Good night,
thank you.
everyone.